be able to trim donkeys and to be prepared to trim them as part of their normal work. Too many donkeys have neglected hoof through lack of willingness on the part of the farrier. A little understanding is needed to cater to the individuality of the donkey, but they are easy to trim and there is no reason to avoid them. The horse's hoof capsule is ideally an even thickness all the way around. A donkey's hoof is thicker at the toe, but the buttress of the heel of a donkey's hoof actually ends further forward from the critical junction of the frog back at the heel. Generally speaking, the balance of a donkey's foot from the solar view is roughly 2/3 in front from the tip of the frog and 1/3 behind the tip of the frog to the actual buttress of the heel. So this measurement in a donkey's hoof is quite different from a horse's hoof, which is 50-50 from the 19mm mark behind the active tip of the frog. In the donkey's foot, the bulbs of the heel are much more pronounced than that of a horse, and this is why the donkey frog is set back much further than the point of balance of a horse's foot. The donkey relies on this bulb, almost like a camel's foot, to act as a traction device or a cushioning device for hard terrain. So to achieve the correct hoof pastern angle on a donkey is a little more difficult than on a horse, because the actual junction of the widest part of the frog is a lot further back than the actual buttresses of the heel that the donkey needs to walk on. In all cases, you will find that the heels of the donkey's foot are left longer to achieve this correct donkey-footed or broken hoof pastern angle. The danger here in trimming a donkey's foot, much like trimming a horse's, is that because these side walls here come back very straight, if we leave the hoof too high, they tend to flare out. So it is still very important to control the flares in the heels of the donkey's foot. Also, if you leave the heels too high, the front of the donkey's foot tends to flare forward, and this thickness in here tends to become huge. Then you get hoof wall separation and seedy toe. The donkey has been introduced into our country, and walking on soft ground is not ideal at all. A donkey is a beast of burden. It is suited to an arid climate where the ground is hard and rocky, and in that terrain the angles wear down exactly as naturally intended. In our milder climate, especially in southern Australia, there is no hardness on the ground to wear the donkey's foot down. The danger here is that these heels grow up too high, the toe grows down too long, and the heels begin to flare out sideways and become very unstable. Now this donkey lived in very soft pasture, and the owners were totally oblivious to his need for hoof care until it was too late and the feet could not be resolved. The donkey's hoof grows at the same rate as the horse's hoof and should be attended to every 6 to 10 weeks, depending on the type of terrain that it's living in. Most donkeys need to be tied up with a very short lead rope in order to trim their feet. They are creatures of habit, and not many donkeys will give their hoof willingly like a horse. The occasional very domesticated donkey can be cross-tied in a shoeing bay just like a horse, and some will allow you to trim without using any restraint, but this is rare. You've got to understand as a hoof carer, as a visiting farrier, that the donkey is an extension of the family to which you've just come to visit. I'm being serious. And won't be tied to you if you walk in there and don't introduce yourself to the family before you start picking up on the kids' feet. They really are an extension of the family, and they will cooperate as long as they accept you as a friend.
They form lifelong attachments.
Yeah. And so they need to understand that you're friendly, that you really are just a part of the family, and you better introduce yourself big time before you start picking these feet up. Because that donkey, if I bend down here, as I did once, with my hoof cutters in my hand, I picked this front foot up. Before I got it up, my pinches, my clippers were gone. I thought, gee, how'd she do that? And I worked out in the finish after about the fourth time that the donkey was cow-kicking the pinches out of my hand over here. They are so absolutely versatile. And they can kick you from... The first line of defence is teeth. If you bend over and don't like it, they've got hold of you by the back of your pants real quick. And the second line of defence is the cow kick. So, and yet they're such lovable animals. They have what we call a donkey's foot. Donkey-footed is a term that we use in the equine world, meaning that the hoof-casted animal is not parallel. They stand more upright. And often you'll find, if you look from the side over there, you'll find there, but you've got this ledge that comes down there like that. It's in two stages. It comes down behind the actual where the horse is passed, and it comes down and joins on in front of it. In front of you, the donkey actually got a ledge like that. And you can see here that the structure of the hoof is a little different than the horse. They've got this great pad out behind here, the buttress of the heel. Find the frog, get rid of the sole, and they'll identify where the hoof capsule is and take it down to there. Well, it's nowhere near as solid and as hard as a horse's hoof. For a horse's hoof, to be able to cut this through for a horse, we're probably using two hands on those clippers. This is so soft.
And she would probably have the driest hooves out of all of those other piece.
But yeah, you feel this. Just squeeze those tongs together. Oh, feel that?
Yeah.
It's soft. It's totally different structure than a horse's hoof capsule. And it's just, they're easy to do simply because they're so soft. And you'd think that they'd wear down because they're so soft, but then we go and put them in a cow pasture. It's got beautiful clover and ryegrass and the irrigation and all of that sort of stuff. Now donkeys suffer from hoof wall separation, seedy toe, and all of those sorts of things. If we leave that hoof capsule unattended, it will split, it will crack, and you will end up with seedy toe.
What would cause an abscess in a donkey?
Hoof wall separation. Flares.
That's sort of dark around.
In there.
Yeah.
That's where the hoof wall separation starts.
So has it actually got seedy toe yet or not?
No.
Right.
No. But you let that get too long, and then it starts to stretch the same as the horse's hoof does. You get these wings, and you can see the thickness in the hoof wall there. You know, it has to be the same thickness all the way around. And once again, look down the back of the leg bone and get your levels through there. You can see I've left it too long there. If you look down that leg bone and down through there, you can see it's long there.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. So to get it straight.
Let's try and take a good measurement.
You see what we've left now is the frog to work. This part of the frog won't work because of the structure of the hoof. But back there it will.
Yes.
And that's what they need to walk on, that pad. It's a bit like a camel's pad. You'll never get it totally parallel. It's not meant to be totally parallel. It's meant to be donkey-footed. Sorry. We say that with all due respect because that's where the term came from. In a horse, that's not acceptable. You can see this bit falling out over the side here. That's the wing of the frog. And if I don't trim that off, she's eventually going to get some thrush down in there. It'll get very smelly. So you pare that off to allow it to clean out through there. You see what I'm doing?
Yeah.
That's most important. This is for you to maintain your hoof health.
Yeah.
But don't take any more frog off than that.
No.
Leave that part there because she needs it.
If they do have thrush, what do you recommend to put on?
A bit of iodine, purple spray, that kind of stuff. Anything that's disinfecting and will dry it out and clean it out and disinfect it. You see in here where all these little cracks are?
Yeah.
That means that that's the top part of the sole, the old sole that's drying off. And drying off.
So you're just going till those cracks are just about there?
That's right.
Yeah.
Once you've got to the bottom of those cracks, or almost, and you've got a nice clean sole, you don't need to go any further.
No.
But then simply run your knife around the front here
Yeah.
to see where it's going here. You can see I'm exposing the length of the hoof wall there now,
Certainly.
quite plainly,
Yep.
and that's the bit of cut off. You see why I don't mind doing donkeys.
No.
If you did this with a pony's feet, you had that much to cut off and it hadn't been soaked, you'd be using both hands on your cutters. Quite definitely. But you can see here now the thickness of this hoof wall. Isn't that a beautiful U shape? Lovely, isn't it? Once again there you'll see how the froggies now are going to impact on the ground.
First, yeah.
Yep. See, the main thing is with the donkey's foot is to make sure it can work properly. Make sure that this frog can clean out in there and keep it healthy. And you can see here that now I've gone in there and taken that bit of extra sole out. Look what I've got. I've got extra hoof capsule to come off. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Now I know that no, there is no hoof wall separation in there, but she's still got too much hoof wall.
Yeah.
And that's why that little black spot was building up.
Yeah.
Because it was too long. And it was probably the start of hoof wall separation.
Yeah.
These little fissure cracks through there simply means that that is old sole. And we can still go down there quite safely without cutting that sole down, without reducing the thickness of that sole to the point where she's going to be sensitive in there. Now, once you've got to that point, don't keep going because you'll make it bleed. Simply stop there. Now that we've done those three, you can see how unhealthy this hoof is because it's not working. It can't work at all. There's no way that that hoof is working. It's not pumping blood back up through the hoof, which is making this whole thing become more contracted. It's becoming shrunken back in the heel here because the frog isn't working to spread the hoof. The real frog is way down in there. You look at the thickness in this sole, in here, an inch thick. You can see the value of using good sharp tools. You see that little blood spot there is purely and simply pressure, sole pressure from having walked on that sole for so long. That's all it is. By the time I round this off a little bit like that, just to stop that edge from wearing back, you've got a lovely shaped hoof capsule. Now we just cut the rest of the hook capital off. That's a lot of hooks in that one, isn't it?
Yeah. Gosh.
So see how the frog is disappearing down in there?
Yeah.
So it's all in that, getting that
Yeah.
salt cleaned out, isn't it?
That's the secret.
You've got to get this hook wall down so you can start the frog to work.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
The more the frog doesn't work, the more contracted this hook becomes.
Yeah.
And the worse your problems get.
Yeah.
You'll find out you'll never have to do as much as this.
Yes.
And your donkey will maintain better feet